Asphyxiation. Asphyxiation is death by a lack of oxygen, and it's a very common cause of death in cave exploration. In certain parts of caves, oxygen levels can drop dangerously low. This often occurs in deep chambers with poor air circulation. Typically, the oxygen level in our atmosphere is around 21%. That's the normal level of oxygen we all live in. When that drops below 19.5%, it's considered an oxygen-deficient environment. In some parts of caves, especially tight and narrow ones, oxygen levels can fall below 16%. From here on, it becomes increasingly hard to breathe. If you were to breathe this little oxygen, you may feel dizzy or lightheaded. You probably wouldn't give it too much thought, thinking you're just tired from exploring inside caves all day. However, death by asphyxiation is a silent and slow killer. If oxygen levels continue to drop below 10%, that's where you would quickly lose consciousness and die without even realizing it. This happens because your brain is now starved for oxygen, and so it shuts down non-essential processes to preserve what little oxygen it has for vital functions. Your brain is basically trying to save you, but if it doesn't get enough oxygen soon enough, you'll die anyway. Toxic gas poisoning. Toxic gases like carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, or hydrogen sulfide can accumulate in caves, especially in poorly ventilated or geothermal areas. These gases pose unique dangers because they interfere directly with your body's ability to use oxygen. For example, carbon monoxide binds to your red blood cells with over 200 times the affinity of oxygen. This basically prevents oxygen transport in the blood because the oxygen molecules have no one to go with. As a result, your organs, especially the brain and heart, become starved of oxygen, leading to a quick death. Hydrogen sulfide, on the other hand, smells like nasty rotten eggs in small doses. However, at higher concentrations, it becomes odorless and undetectable. This effectively paralyzes your sense of smell, preventing your cells from breathing properly and knocking you out instantly as a result. In all these cases, the body doesn't die from a lack of breathing, but from a lack of usable oxygen. Death by toxic gases is a silent and quiet type of death too, because you often don't realize what's happening until it's too late. Drowning. Drowning is one of the most common causes of death in cave exploration, and also one of the most terrifying if you ask me. Caves with active water systems are prone to water floods, especially after rain. Exploring underwater cave systems is known as cave diving, and it's arguably even more dangerous than traditional cave exploration. Here, a sudden surge of water can fill passages in seconds, cutting off escape routes and trapping explorers inside. Additionally, visibility is very limited inside these caves. If you take a wrong turn, lose your way, or experience equipment failure here, navigation will become extremely difficult and your chances of dying significantly increase. Water sets in, air runs out, and you often don't get a second chance. Drowning in a cave is particularly terrifying because there's rarely room to resurface or get help. The risk of flooding is also highly unpredictable, as even rain miles away can cause flooding inside the cave. Huge amounts of water get in suddenly, and you never know if it's going to leave you any free route to go back. Falling from heights. Falling inside a cave is one of the quickest and most cruel ways to die, even for experienced explorers. The internal structure of a cave is often complex and unclear. Caves feature vertical shafts, drop-offs, slippery ledges, and uneven surfaces. All these factors increase your risk of falling, and they're often unpredictable. Imagine you're exploring inside a cave. You think you know the way forward, and everything seems to go well. Until suddenly, a single misstep, a misplaced foothold, or a malfunctioning harness causes you to fall from a deadly height. The rocky surfaces waiting you below are typically jagged and uneven. If you get lucky, you might die instantly due to head or spinal injuries. However, if you're not that lucky, the fall leaves you alive but immobilized, with broken bones or internal bleeding. In these cases, without immediate rescue, you'll die of a slow and painful death, either to the injuries themselves or the environment around you. You may be thinking, hey, at least I have a chance of surviving if I get help, right? However, in remote cave systems like this, rescue may take hours or days, turning survivable injuries into fatal ones. Falling in caves is often sudden and unpredictable. Even experienced explorers need to be careful of where they put their foot, because you never know if the next rock you're going to step on is crumbly or not. Rockfall. Rockfall is the massive movement of multiple rocks caused by the unstable structure of the caves. It's basically the classical sequence in video games where a rock chases you down a cave and you need to avoid it. Only that, in reality, it can get much more dangerous and unpredictable. Rocks, stalactites, or entire sections of cave ceilings can collapse unexpectedly, crushing you beneath tons of debris. Even small vibrations, like a loud voice, a misstep, or distant construction, can trigger rockfalls. Depending on the weight and velocity of the falling rocks, you may die immediately from blunt trauma, get crushed under a heavy rock, or experience severe injuries. You might be thinking that being hit directly is the main way to die from rockfall, but that's not the case. A large portion of deaths happen because the fallen debris actually blocks the airways in the cave, trapping you inside. The fallen rocks then kill you indirectly through asphyxiation, crush injuries, or dehydration. It's a slow and painful way to go. Hypothermia. Hypothermia is death by extreme cold. Caves are often cold, damp, and dark places. Even if the actual temperature seems tolerable, the combination of wet conditions and prolonged immobility can rapidly lead to hypothermia. It's not just about the external temperature. It's about how your body feels. Hypothermia begins when your body loses heat faster than it can produce it. The process happens even faster in caves where you're often damp, you can't move much, and no sunlight can get in. Early signs include intense shivering, numbness, and reduced coordination. As the hypothermia sets in, your brain goes in survival mode and prioritizes vital organs, pulling blood away from limbs and skin. Suddenly, you stop shivering. You start thinking, hey, maybe I'm not so cold anymore. I have a chance at surviving. But in reality, not shivering anymore is even scarier than shivering. It's a sign that core temperature has dropped dangerously low. Your heart starts beating slower and slower until it comes to a complete stop. That's when you die by hypothermia. In a cave, without warmth or rescue, hypothermia is a slow, quiet, and lethal process. Starvation and dehydration. These are two of the most common causes of death in cave exploration. A severe lack of food or water. Your body can survive weeks or even months without food, depending how much body fat you're carrying. However, death by dehydration is much quicker. Your body can only survive 2 to 3 days without water, and then it drops dead. Water is vital for all bodily functions, especially during cave explorations, where your body is working non-stop and it needs even more water than usual. The first signs of dehydration are a dry mouth, dizziness, and fatigue, escalating all the way to organ failure, delirium, and death. Death by starvation or dehydration is even more terrifying than we can imagine. The slow realization of being trapped inside a cave without resources can lead to panic, despair, and delirium, which only accelerates physical decline. Psychologically speaking, it's one of the worst ways to go. Traumatic shock. Traumatic shock is a pathological condition caused by severe injuries like fractures or bleeding. When you go into shock, your body responds by narrowing blood vessels to increase blood flow to vital organs. It's your body's attempt to stay alive after a major injury. Your body always prioritizes brain and heart. However, if blood loss is too great or pain is extreme, blood pressure crashes. You may start feeling cold, disoriented, and your skin would look pale because of the decreased blood flow. Then, rapid heartbeat, shallow breathing, and unresponsiveness follow. If you don't get help immediately, your vital organs begin to fail too. In a remote cave, traumatic shock often becomes fatal within hours. Even if the injury itself isn't lethal, the shock response can be. Suffocation. This is perhaps the most horrible and terrifying way to die in caves, and the one people fear the most. It's death by suffocation, where you become trapped in tight, narrow passages and you can't breathe properly. Suffocation is different from asphyxiation. The latter implies a lack of oxygen, where there's literally not enough oxygen for you to breathe. Suffocation is different. You become stuck in positions that physically prevent you from breathing. There may be enough oxygen around you, but your lungs can't expand properly because your chest and diaphragm are too compressed. This is truly the worst way you can die in a cave, because you're fully conscious and well, but you know your end is near. You slowly realize you're stuck, you can't get out. Panic sets in. It may take hours for you to finally become unconscious and eventually die. I hope you're not claustrophobic, because this would be a nightmare for you. This is unfortunately what happened in many real-life cases like John Edward Jones, who became wedged head down in a Utah cave in 2009 and suffocated over hours. I think this type of death alone is enough of a reason to stay well away from cave exploration. Panic and disorientation. Caves are disorienting by nature. Pitch black, unfamiliar, silent or echoing, and often hard to navigate. In such environments, panic can be just as deadly as any physical hazard. Many external factors can cause a state of panic, like starvation, becoming trapped or losing your way. When you go into a state of panic, rational thinking breaks down. You can't think lucidly anymore, and this can be equally as lethal. You may start screaming, injure yourself inadvertently, and increase stress on your body. Panic can also lead to hyperventilation, accelerating loss of fluids and over-consuming what little oxygen there is. Disorientation on its own can be just as lethal and arguably more horrifying. You may misjudge distances or turns inside the cave, return to the same spot over and over, or even miss obvious escape routes. You better hope your equipment doesn't fail you at least, because when batteries or lights die, everything becomes pitch black, a uniform black void where no sunlight can reach. This is actually known among cavers as absolute darkness, where even your hand in front of your face is invisible. Those who become lost often run down their supplies, suffer mental breakdowns, or even sit down and stop trying, waiting for death to come and find them. Truly a gut-wrenching way to go. Infections or bites. This category refers to death through bites of infected animals or lethal diseases. Although rare compared to other types of deaths in caves, infections and bites can happen, and they are slow, silent killers, especially in caves, where medical help is often out of reach. Imagine you sustained an injury during your cave exploration, maybe even something minor like a small cut or scrape. You may not think much of it, as it barely hurts. However, if not treated properly, even those small injuries can be lethal. Open wound are a gateway for bacteria and infections of all kinds to enter the bloodstream. Without antibiotics, this can lead to cellulitis, sepsis, and other medical conditions. In the worst-case scenario, sepsis can cause organ failure and death within days. Turns out bats in caves are actually as scary as they're portrayed to be. A bite from one of these birds puts you at risk of contracting rabies, one of the most lethal and terrifying diseases ever. Once symptoms appear, death is almost always guaranteed. There is no known cure for rabies, but it's not like you could get it anyway since you're trapped inside a cave. Other cave dwellers, like spiders, snakes, or insects, may also bite or sting you, and some of them probably carry some sort of venom. Even non-venomous bites can cause you to have allergic reactions or infected wounds. In most of these cases, the danger isn't the bite or the wound itself. It's what follow after and the lack of treatment that leads to death. Physical collapse. Physical collapse happens when your body has depleted all its energy and reserves. Navigating tight spaces, climbing, crawling, and constantly being alert in complete darkness puts immense strain on the body and mind. This kind of effort is feasible for a short duration, but over time, especially in long expeditions or rescue missions, this can lead to a complete physical collapse. This collapse isn't just fatigue. It's systemic. When you're dehydrated, undernourished, and your muscles have been overworked, your body starts to shut down. Blood pressure drops and muscles fail to respond. You may experience things like heat stroke, loss of consciousness, or even rhabdomyolysis, where your muscle tissue starts to break down and poisons the kidneys. If you don't get immediate and proper rest, hydration, or nutrients, Physical collapse can lead to multi-organ failure or cardiac arrest. It's a dangerous endpoint, not just of physical fatigue, but of misjudging the limits of the human body under extreme stress. That's all, friends. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like and subscribing. It would really help me out a ton.